Live.
Awesome.
So welcome to round three of Thursday Nighter. Got a bit of a late start here, so thanks for the audience waiting. Appreciate you guys. And we also have a bit of a mix up in the commentators, so we don't have Ojasiva this week, but we've got myself and Connor, and potentially we'll have Ojasiva next week. So always gonna have a mix of commentators here, and yeah, we got the two experts this week. So no FIDE master, but we'll do our best for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the commentators, so
Yep. So
we don't have. And so,
let
yeah, Connor's gonna be controlling the boards, and
yep.
I'll be asking him for his expert opinions. And
All
let's
right.
get into it.
Yeah, let's start off on board one. It's Nathan Hoover versus Miles. So Nate has I believe, black pieces. So Miles starts off with knight f3. We see this a lot with his openings, knight f6, b3. Just Miles plays this system a lot. I think it was 2 months ago. Maybe it was no, it was 2 months ago. Nate played a match against Miles playing the white pieces, and Miles ended up winning with this very same system. So we'll see if Nate is a little bit more aware of Miles's ideas this time.
Oh, Connor, let me pause you for a second. Flip the engine off. Let's do a little fun intro competition where we summarize the opening without any engine, and then we both try to evaluate what we think the current eval of the position is, and
Oh yeah, sure.
we see who gets closer.
Yeah, absolutely. So we see castles, we see bishop e2, c6, knight d2, knight d7. We've got to be close to zeros right now. Because actually I played a very similar thing against Miles. Miles played this system as white. I ended up losing for the same thing. So I've looked at this idea that Nate is playing before because the engine approves. And then a4, I actually didn't see this in the engine line. So I'm going to assume black is going to get a slight edge here. Yeah, e4, we have to play e5, staking our claim to center, d takes, pawn takes, knight c4, takes on e4. And I'd have to say that in this position, black has to be better, especially after queen d3. I was talking about this a little bit earlier with Chris, but knight f2 is the move that I would play here. And it might look a little bit crazy, but I'm not even going to explain it because it's actually happening on the board. Nate plays knight to f2 in this position. And what you need to realize is that this bishop is going to end up playing a lot, especially if you get this pawn push, you get this fork. And so you're just trying to play for activity as black and open up the white king a little bit, and you're going to be up a pawn. So we see takes and we see e4. And I already think this is going to be like a +1 for Nate, so minus 1 position, because I don't really see any great ways to maintain what we have as white, what we had as white in the center. Because one of our main advantages is that we had a slight lean development, and this bishop wasn't going to come out. But the more we trade as black, the less that's going to matter. And now you actually have a slightly weaker king as well. So I would give a -1 eval. What are you thinking, Chris?
Well, I feel this one was cheater because we got a hint in the pregame that this knight takes f2
Well,
is
this is
working.
not.
So
Well, I already knew it was
and
working.
Connor knew I didn't, so I'm gonna go ahead and agree with Connor on this one, but we gotta put an asterisk next to this one as far as the official eval discerning tally, because we know this is working for Nate and this is kind of amazing. Knight takes f2 is a shocking move, but it's totally working tactically. Uh, so let's actually dive into this a tiny bit more because I don't feel like I'm totally understanding yet why back up just tiny bit to knight takes f2 and why is this so strong?
Yeah, of course.
What's the core idea here?
So what we want to do is we just want to fork right here. And we would like to open this rook file as well, and just create some long-term pressure against the white pieces by activating our pieces more. So one thing that we'll notice here is our bishop is staring at a pawn. So is our rook. We would love to get rid of this pawn. And why not get rid of one of the key pawns that's defending the white king? So in order to do this, we want to get our pawn to e4, but we know that if we move our knight away, then Miles is going to do something like knight to d2, and then we can't really easily push. Well, we can, but it's not as effective because white will have time to consolidate their pieces a little bit. So what we do is we take the f2 pawn, just because this is a critical pawn for defending the white king. And after rook takes, now we get this idea. And all of a sudden, all of our pieces are coming to life. And we can also trade this piece over here. I think this would be very reasonable because even though it looks like we have a few dark squared weaknesses around our king, white doesn't have any pieces that can actually exploit it. The knights are currently really poorly placed to attack it. And, you know, we don't even have to. We can even develop like knight here or something. But we're just trying to get our pieces to come to life. Whereas back in, you know, a few moves ago, like in this position, we're a little bit cramped on space. And white has, I'd say, a small, like, space advantage. I still think black is slightly for choice in this position, even though the engine may read zeros. But yeah, once we see this has to be an advantage because now we're up the pawn and we have active pieces. Yep, and he snaps off the bishop exactly like I thought he would.
Got it. So he's not really sacking a piece there because that was already
No, it does.
it was
It
already
does sort of
recaptured
look
from go a few moves
exactly.
earlier then because that maybe that'll help me understand slightly better. Because was he already up a piece when he sacked knight takes f2 or
So he was not, but the problem is for white, you can't escape this fork without losing a piece, right?
okay.
Um, and so he was already up a pawn. So going here, uh, after knight to c4, which I think is probably just a blunder, honestly. After knight to c4, this just sacks a pawn, right? And once Miles comes here, you know, we can come here, but this will give time for white to consolidate and move their pieces. So we just sack right away. And then after takes and e4, now all of our pieces are going to come to life. We're trading. Now white's knight is forced to retreat, so we're almost for sure going to see knight takes bishop. If we don't, then this is going to be a very short game. Although it is possible to move the knight, you have to snap off this bishop, or you're just going to be substantially worse. One sample line is if you go here, you know, it does look like you're creating some nice threats, but they're really empty threats because I just go bishop here. And now long term, because I have this nice diagonal and I'm hitting the rook, this is going to be good. And the computer may even show that instead of doing this, you can just take the free rook. In fact, now that I'm looking at this, I'm not actually seeing the line because if worse comes to worse, I can even sack my queen here. Maybe I can't because I missed this knight d6. But at some point, I may be able to even sack my queen and I'll be just fine.
Okay,
So
making a lot more sense. It's not a real piece sack because you're just getting
yeah,
the piece back right away.
exactly.
All right, cool. Well, let's move on to the next game. And
Yeah,
this
game
one we
two.
can have a total bet. We can actually have an eval battle on this one. And
Yes. All right.
this one looks pretty crazy actually. So we got a
Yeah,
little
this is Robert and Eddie, and it looks like Robert is playing the white pieces. And we see a very strange opening. We see pawn to f4. You don't see this very often.
yeah, Connor likes to play that himself, so uh, he's gonna
I
be a
have played this.
he's gonna be a good commentator here on the bird.
You are right. I have played this a few times, but I usually don't play it against someone like you know, above 2000. And Eddie is I believe currently above 2000. Even if he's not, he's definitely a 2000 level player. But yeah, we see f4 and then we see e5. Looks like sort of a king's gambit structure, and then we see d4,
Yeah.
ed, queen d, and knight c6.
So
Yeah, and
already
this
pretty strange. I mean, Eddie playing e5 is pretty crazy. You know, he really wants the King's Gambit. You know,
yeah.
because keep in context, Robert's played King's Gambit recently, so Eddie probably had some nice preparation for King's Gambit. He's ready for King's Gambit. He's like, Robert, please play King's Gambit against me, man. And he plays f4. He's like, okay, e5, please play e4, King's Gambit. I got some prep. And Robert's just like, no, buddy, not gonna happen tonight. So Robert's a little savvy and realizing that you know, even though he likes to play the King's Gambit, you know, he's not gonna walk into what Eddie wants.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Because, I mean, e4 is probably going to be the best play, the most principled play. But, you know, this is definitely very interesting. And in this position, you almost feel like you want to go queen d3, queen f2, queen d2, something like that. And it looks like Robert chooses queen f2, which is very sensible. Right here, we develop bishop b4, bishop d2. All of these are very natural developing moves. And after castles, queenside castles, and d5, I actually think black has an edge here, just because their pieces are definitely more harmonious. And white is White is a little bit struggling in the center and in development because Black's pieces are really aggressive right now. We see knight to f3, rook e8, knight to g5, and one thing about the time, it really looks like Robert is playing blitz here. He's on an hour and 28 minutes, and Eddie is on an hour and 8 minutes. And then after h6, Eddie's down another 10 minutes. So it's wow, it's just a sack out of nowhere. And actually think this sack might work, although I'm not entirely sure. Of course, if I'm playing, I have to do full calculation. Intuitively speaking, though, this doesn't feel correct. I feel like taking here is fine, and then just going knight to g4. So just to show here,
Yeah, look at
knight g4.
look at the pieces. I mean, you got to count the pieces in the attack and defense, and like I don't even see. I mean, you got the open H file, but I mean, your
Yeah,
red square
and
bishop totally undeveloped, and
after here, yeah, I'm not actually seeing a lot. I think I can even just run. This is very risky, so maybe you don't want to do this because you have to be incredibly sharp. And Robert is a very sharp player, so he can make it. He'll find any wrinkle. So what Eddie does instead is he just goes bishop to f5, which is definitely a more practical attempt. And actually, now that I go back, takes. Maybe we go knight here, and the idea is after here. Now you go bishop to f5, but Robert is not going to make it easy. He's going to try and fight. He'll do something like this. So now bishop f5 doesn't work. So you'd have to do this full calculation. But yeah, Eddie just plays safe. He goes bishop here, and now we see pawn to e4, which is a wild move. We see bishop to g4 hitting the rook, and Robert just gives up the rook. He wants to attack. This is very much in Robert's style. And yeah, Eddie takes it. I think this is maybe a little bit too much. Yeah, bishop g4 takes, queen takes, and this looks completely winning for Black to me, because Eddie is never going to take this g5 knight, because now he doesn't need to. Even if the engine says it's the best move, there is no reason to, because it puts you at risk of potentially walking into some attack when you're already up material and you already have a better position. So Eddie's never going to take it. So we see knight takes pawn, takes, and we're just trying to exchange everything. Queen to d6. And after knight to e4, yeah, we actually see probably the best move in the position. Eddie just stacks the queen back. And just to be clear, in this position, it is 3 pieces, 1, 2, 3 pieces for a queen. So this is a very good trade for Eddie in this case. It did kind of look like Robert blundered this full knight, but of course he has this trick where he takes. And note that you can't move your king away because this is a fork. So you are forced to take. And then after check, takes, king g7, just defending this pawn. I mean, if this pawn wasn't here, I might actually, if this pawn was like here or something, I might say, White has some fighting chances. But of course, this pawn is here, and so this king is completely safe. Black has to be completely winning here. Yeah, f5, just bring your rooks in, knight here. Queen b7. Queen b7 feels very greedy to me too, but I understand the play. I really do like Black here, but one thing to note is Eddie has 1 minute. Robert has an hour and 20 minutes. So I think that Robert still has some really good chances of winning this. Yeah, this play has to be played. I think this makes good sense, and Robert's going to go pawn to c3. I actually still think Eddie will probably win this. Because the big problem is the plans are too easy for Black. I'm going to go here. I'm going to, put my rook here with a double up on the second rank, and I'm just going to try and checkmate you.
yeah, it's just too much material. And Robert kind of showing, we see this in his games almost every week. Like he stacks too much material, so he's abiding by he's getting activity for his pieces at all costs, but he stacks so much material on the way to get there that it's tough to recover from. And
Exactly.
Yeah, this is pretty straightforward to me. I mean, a rook and 2 pieces for a queen is almost.
They're definitely ring. We can make it complicated. Do something like this. Now I don't think it works because we can just take on b2, and even though well, maybe not take on b2. This might be a little too much because my bishop is pinned now, but I can at least go rook to f2. and now I'm hitting this, and it's still really, really bad. But
It's. I mean,
you
look at
know,
that. Look at the structure on that king too. It's just hard to imagine the queen even getting at that king.
yeah,
So,
and that is actually a really big factor. You're exactly right. These pawns are fantastic.
I can just, if I'm playing black, I'm just imagining my rooks getting down to the second. That's my main priority. Uh, and then I just don't really see what white's going to do.
Yeah,
Um, so I just want to get my knight out of the way and get my rook on the eighth to the second and ask white that question like, I'm about to mate you. So,
show me your plays. Yeah.
and
Yeah,
he's,
and Robert just takes. He's sacking his queen. He's just going to be down a whole lot of material. And Eddie should play this really
come on,
quickly.
yeah,
This is
autopilot. Especially,
Eddie's now.
especially on a minute. This
Yeah,
isn't even a practical play for Robert. I mean, come on, your opponent's playing on a minute. Why are you helping him simplify?
yeah, and now Robert is just down. A full bishop. So I think Eddie should win this. He'll go here, and he'll try and play against these pawns. And Robert is going to try and hold a draw, but Eddie is just too strong at endgames. So I think this match is just completely in Eddie's favor. And yeah, Eddie's playing fast. He's now back up to 2.5 minutes. So I do feel like Eddie's going to go on to win this. Should we take a look at our board three then?
Yeah, definitely. And one other note on that game is I know actually Robert has a 4-0 record against Eddie Lifetime. So this is a nice
Right.
redemption game if Eddie can close it out here.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go on to the next game. This is UV versus Dane. It looks like Dane is playing the white pieces, and as always, he comes prepared with his pawn to d4, d5, c4, and both of these players are main d4 players, so this is very familiar territory for both of them. Um, so no shock that we see this. We see knight to f3, um, pawn to a6. This is all well known theory. Nothing new so far. Knight to h5. Yep. Bishop g5. And this is all standard. Yeah, this move is new to me though. Actually, this is very interesting. So in this position, I've seen this position before, and it's like bishop to d3 and you trade, and I've played this in blitz and rapid 1,000 times just because this is very natural development for both sides.
There's
I've
no
never
way.
actually looked at this knight takes g5 move,
There's
and
no
I'm
way.
I'm a little surprised to see this.
There's no way. That's got to be suspicious.
Yeah, so what we see is we see knight g5 hg, rook takes, bishop takes, and then queen b3.
Yeah, like
And
where's your activity even? I don't even. It's like, okay, it looks like an equal position to me. It just whites down a piece.
no, I mean, it makes some sense. It's very surprising. Um,
But like,
yeah,
where's
and
where's the
knight
pressure?
h5,
Where's the
yeah,
pressure? I
knight
mean, a little bit on
knight
b7, but
h5 takes,
okay,
and yeah, rook d8. And where is the play? I think UV is just better here.
now you're just down a you're down a full piece. Like you trade the queens quickly afterwards, and you didn't even have a development advantage. Like
Yeah, this piece for two pawns. You can still make a lot of play just because black's pawns clearly aren't so strong, but neither are whites, and that's the real problem. It's not like you even have a fast pawn here. Um,
but
so
but come on,
I'm, I'm
what side do you want of the piece or two pawns? I want the piece side like
oh, absolutely.
a
No, the
hundred
piece,
times out of a hundred.
it's a bishop pair. It's going to be really menacing. So we see knight here, knight to c4. Yeah, and we're just improving our worst piece. This makes good sense. And kicks it out, sure. Knight to d6, playing very solid. UV's not taking any risks. He knows he's better. And so he's just going to try and slowly convert it. Yeah, we see f3, bishop back. And the reason we go bishop back is because we know that e4 is going to be coming. So we're just preparing so that it doesn't come with tempo. So it's prophylaxis. We see king to d2, offering a knight trade. I think a very practical decision. Takes, bishop takes. And even though we can see knight takes here and, we're ruining black's pawns, that's not really going to play because we have an extra piece.
Yeah,
So
no
Dane
pieces
can't
left.
take. So instead we see rook to h1, and now we see bishop g7, rook to h5, and I'm actually a little
Yeah, come
surprised
on,
to
just
see
play
this.
bishop f6. I mean, why?
I actually I agree with this push. I'm just a little surprised to see it because bishop f6 felt natural. But the problem with bishop f6 is it ran into, some tricks later on. Not immediately. It also maybe ran into a knight d5 trick. So actually, I really do like this f6 move. It's probably what I would have chosen, even if the engine disagrees. Just because I know that long term my bishop is going to be good, and I'm going to walk here, here, and push. Or I'll like stake my claim in the center like this. But yeah, f6 is a little bit surprising because it doesn't feel as active as what you'd normally see. But I think it's perfectly acceptable. We see g4. We're trying to prevent this push ever in the future. King f7, rook to h1, pawn to e6, and yeah, UV is going to come and activate this way. So it's not like it's a terrible play f6. It was just a little surprising. Knight to e4, and be careful. You can always lose the game. Knights are very tricky, so this is a fork to watch out for. Yep, rook to d6, defending. Rook to c1, taking the open file, and we see this reroute. Um, Very, very nice play. And there's
Blocked his
really
rook.
no way to break through. Exactly. And now this rook is a little bit trapped. And we might actually try and trap it by like, I don't know, swinging here and here, or at some point.
Hey,
Of
why
course,
you getting more ambitious? Don't opt for the rook trade. Just get the rook out of the way. Bring the king in.
yeah, this could also work.
Somehow
I
you got to
don't
protect the
feel
bishop,
maybe
but I don't know. It's probably
yeah,
not. It's a bit contrived.
yeah, if I saw some way to trap it, I think this would be fantastic. We could try to get greedy and take this pawn. I think that's
Right.
a reasonable play as well, but unfortunately it comes with check. So maybe we can move our king like here and then do that. So just white still has chances, but
Well,
it's definitely black.
and normally that'd be like a well placed knight, but it's not a really well placed knight when you're down a full piece.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah, and
you're in
that
a rough position when you can't afford any piece trades. So
yep.
it's just this is straightforward.
Yeah, I agree. So we see knight to f2, a bishop b4 check, king over, bishop b5. And yeah, these are monster bishops. Bishops are worth 3 points. These ones are probably worth four. Like these are really good bishops. King to b2, bishop to f1, forcing some kind of pawn push or concession. Then we'll come here and mop up a pawn. So we're going to be down more material in less. Exactly. We force a retreat, and this is
He's hoping for bishop takes and knight 93 maybe or knight d3.
yeah. Yeah, and I think this is what you have to try. Yeah, and we see bishop h5, knight h1. And knight h1 is actually, I think, a very practical try. Um, but it's not doing a whole lot, and that's the problem. Now we offer the rook trade, rook to f2, bishop to d3, pawn to g3. I actually think that Dana's doing a very nice job at least making it complicated, but there's there's still not a lot to do here, and that's the biggest issue, in my opinion, that you can't make progress as white. You can only make progress as black, and so black they're just going to have free flowing moves. And so Dane has an hour and 20 minutes left, so he has plenty of time
Ah,
to calculate. UV has 15 minutes, but and this is where I was saying it's kind of easy to come up with moves for black. And I guess it's sort of easy to come up with moves for white. You go rook h2, rook f2, rook h2, rook f2 because you're playing for a draw at this point. But yeah, we see check, king to h3. But this is I think not so great. Maybe it's okay. But yeah, I'm really not liking this position. Um
here, just take a break for just a quick moment because I did see we have National Master Matt Jensen in the chat talking about how the bishop pair is super strong. And I do want to
yes.
give, we usually plug it a little bit later, but let's just plug it right now since we got Matt in the chat. We've got actually a main sponsor in the chat. So chessgoals.com is our main sponsor. So Matt comes on and does commentary now and then, and we really appreciate that. And he owns a company called Chess Goals. Simple chess courses for non-grand masters, so you can learn complete repertoires in under 100 lines. And I actually own the Catalan course myself, and we were just talking about the courses ourselves even before the stream started. So if you do want to check out chessschools.com, check out those repertoires. Make sure you use coupon code CASTLE to save 30%. And National Master Matt Jensen will you'll get access to a private Discord where he'll answer your questions on the courses and everything. So yeah, very cool and happy to have him in the chat. And yeah, with that, let's move on to the next game though.
Yeah, absolutely. We were saying though, let's see if we can guess the
All right, I guess
evaluation
the
here.
yeah, okay.
What are we
Winning for,
thinking?
I mean, I guess we got to put a number on it. I mean, we're thinking winning for black, of course, but
Yeah,
what is it? I mean, it's a full piece. Piece is 3 points, right? But it's even more than that because it's a bishop pair. So I'm going -4.
I'm doing -5 because I see tactics to win pawns. So let's see. It's minus almost
Connor,
6. No,
Connor,
it's 6.
even more. It's
Yeah,
brutal.
because I see tactics to win pawns. You go a5 here, and I'm literally going to be checkmating you unless you're careful. Now it says -8. So second line is -5. Bishop to e1. Bishop e1 is not the move I would have played. I would have gone a5 here in a heartbeat, just because. Let's say you play a nothing. Let's say you play here. The computer for some reason says king to f8 is best. I'm not fully understanding king to f8. Weird play. Sure. But yeah, I was about to say I can sit here, and pushing is very scary. The move I'd probably play here is king here to cut off this file. And actually, when I play it, the eval goes up by 2 points. So I think it missed this move and its ideas. And let's say you go back. You can't make any progress. Now I can go bishop g6, and I can start pushing my pawns. And you can't. And now it sees actually mate in 15. Yeah. And so this is just very, very bad. The point is, I can come here, and you can never move any of your pawns. You can't make a pawn break here. You can't make pawn breaks with these because your pawns will be hanging, and you are completely frozen. And once I go king here, you don't have any rook squares either. So you're completely stuck. So I think a5 and just first to lock down this b4 push, and then go king to g7, and you don't have any play. So,
Yeah, so I
but
think,
-8, that's an
I
impressive
mean,
eval.
Dane just kind of went crazy tonight. Just sacked a piece for really no purpose at all, and UV's just
I know
converting
he
it.
needs to do this
So
in games against us.
yeah,
Why
yeah.
doesn't he ever? Why
Oh
doesn't he
well,
ever
actually,
choose this?
he's done it in a couple games against me, so I can't complain. But
He's never sacked a piece against me. Not intentionally. I've tricked him, but it wasn't because he
I
wanted
get
to.
this. It's his contempt strat, so he respects you more. Although
Yep.
we know he knows UV's serious, so I mean, and hey, even if he doesn't take him serious, that's actually an advantage in chess. Actually, I've actually thought about that a bit. It must suck to really be the top dog because everyone preps you, everyone like takes you super seriously with their most serious openings and takes no risk.
Yeah.
So almost an advantage I feel like to be like the low seed because your opponent treats you with a bit of contempt. They take a bit of
Yeah. I get a
risk.
lot of mainline openings. Even Robert was playing some mainline stuff after I faced him the first time. So,
Yeah,
but that being said, I think it's fun because that means I get to test my theory. All right. Shall we move on to game 4?
yeah. Let's do it.
All right. Game 4, we have Ryan versus Ezekiel. And both of them are pretty low. Ryan has 40 minutes. Ezekiel has 20. Ezekiel playing white. Let's take a look at what happens. So we see e4, d5. Yeah, Ryan plays this all the time. This is what he's played every single time I've faced him with pawn e4. So he's very well versed with this, and he always goes queen to a5. I honestly think the queen to d6 line, it's becoming more trendy. It's a lot harder to play against, in my opinion, but queen to a5 is always a solid play. I believe it's what John Bartholomew
Yeah,
recommended.
he's about to release Epic Course. He's been
Yeah.
working. He's worked on it like hours per day, and he talks about it on
Hmm.
his stream. So I think we're gonna see John reviving the Queen A5 Scandi, whether we like it or not.
Yep. And it's a very good option. Like I was saying, queen to d6 is a little bit more trendy just because I think it gives a little bit less options to white. But if you know what you're doing, and I think Ryan knows what he's doing, this is a very good play. We see pawn to d4, c6, very typical moves. And this is all seen before, nothing new. Pawn to e6, and this formation is very hard to crack. Just these pawns here, you look for sacks for white, but they never work. There's just nothing here. Rook to e1, bishop to e7. We see h3, back up. And this is a little bit
G4,
wild.
yeah.
I mean, I know you can play G4, and this is still something I've seen before. Um, but I always feel a little bit more comfortable playing the black pieces here. And by the way, this is still theory. Like I faced this against National Master Kyler playing the black piece, and this is almost exactly what he played. Now in my game, I had a little bit of a wrinkle where I was able to sack a piece, but this is a main line. There's no sideline like I played against
Wait, so
Kyler.
you play G4 as well yourself?
No, I played black and I sacked a
Ah,
knight. And then I sacked a knight, and then 2 moves later I sacked a bishop, and I ended up winning. But that's because I'd done some digging, and I went, this is the main line. Let me see if I can throw in a wrinkle. But this is like main line, so this is all
I
all seen before.
I feel like G4 is one of those moves that's like, it's master nuance because like,
Yeah,
sometimes it totally compromises your king safety, sometimes it like makes the bishop look stupid and it's the best move ever, and
yeah. And
it really
so we
depends on the
see
position, depends on the
here.
opening, depends on the piece activity, depends.
So
Uh,
the big thing why it's okay here is because this queen over here is very offsides, and this bishop is not going to be playing against this king. It's on the wrong side of the board. Same thing with this bishop. It really can't find any good squares. And so as long as these pieces stay over there, we're going to be completely safe. One thing to note is, we want the bishop pair, but not in this case because once we take back, we have a permanent weakness here, and we don't want to deal with that. But yeah, this is known, and I actually think white is slightly for choice here. It's like 0.6 or 5 or something like that. It's been a while since I've checked the eval, but this is known moves. And yeah, knight to d5. I think this makes sense. Just opening the bishops, so we have an immediate threat. And then we see bishop to d2, and this is a move that I've actually not seen before. I'm a little confused. I think h5 is no h5. I think has a trick. Now that I'm saying that, h5 I think was the move. I think it's supposed to be something like bishop to d5 and then you go h5 or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but maybe no. This is a different position that I'm thinking about. So I've never seen this
yeah, it's
position
not
before.
my Scandi system, so
Yeah, but I would play bishop takes d5 here and then go h5 and just argue your bishop's trapped. I'm going to trade it and I'm going to win this pawn because after takes, I'll do takes this way. I'm not sure it really matters. And here we're forced to give up this pawn, and I'm kind of liking the position here. But this is not what we ended up seeing. Instead of bishop takes, what we saw is bishop to d2, which is also very solid. No nonsense. And after knight takes knight, rook takes, queen b6. I'm not actually so sure how to evaluate this position. Okay, so we end up seeing take, and queen here, but I'm actually starting to really like black. And this is our live position.
okay.
Uh,
And Ryan's actually got some time on his clock, so Ryan's sometimes a time trouble addict, but this week managing it well, so that's a nice improvement.
yeah, yeah, no, Ryan I think is doing very well. Um, So I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. So the lines that I'm looking at are takes, and then maybe takes here. I think this seems reasonable. And then I'm trying to figure out what's going on because I was afraid of a move like this, but then I think I can take here and I might be okay. And after queen takes and some complications, I'm not sure what's going on. Now that I say that, this is very bad because I go here, then I can take, and then this is very 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 good for white. So after takes, yeah, maybe you can't take this bishop then. So maybe white is actually just winning. I missed this.
Yeah, it looks like a tactic you can miss just because the square is covered by two pawns. You're like, hey, you kind
Yeah.
of
So maybe you're forced to do something like this, and maybe this is what you need to play. Maybe this works, but no, it doesn't because you take. Wow.
to me actually
Yeah. Wow.
To me, these are like the sweet tactics to play in classical games. You know, like play bishop b5 when they already have a pawn on a6, or play like e5 when they have pawns on like d4 and f4, and it just works because all the captures don't work, and like moves you can never find in blitz just because you need to calculate too many variations. But they work in classical because you got to look at all the forcing moves, even the ones that are like seemingly impossible. Like it's kind of that Sam Shanklin question, right? The famous Sam Shanklin question is like, what if I just do it anyways?
Yep.
So
So in this position, I think Ryan might be looking at something like bishop f6 because this I don't see working because now the knight is not involved, and if you take and take and take, I don't see where the mate is. So I'm going to say, you know, it looks a little scary, but I also have an extra rook, and your bishop is also under attack. So and check does not a lot. Oh, maybe check is scary. Never mind. Yeah, no, maybe check is very
yeah,
scary.
well, at least your queen's not hanging behind it, so you at least have to worry about.
Yeah, so maybe you have to run this way.
But what are you seeing after king d8 check for
Sorry,
the
show.
for the finish? What are you seeing here?
I mean, if you go here, this is checkmate, right? So you can't play that. And if you go here, I can check here, and
Yeah,
I don't see how you
bringing
escape
the
mate.
rook in. Yep.
Yeah, so I think if you do this, you have to play here. And now you might be okay because now I think you have to move the bishop out. And I don't see mate because if you play here, and this is not good enough.
Now your queen's a little bit unprotected, but no good discoveries because king's on dark.
Exactly. And that's an important thing to note because my king is on a dark square and I need to move the bishop to create a discovery attack. Because of the geometry, I know that I'm safe. I didn't even calculate this, but that is a good thing to point out. But yeah, if you notice this geometry, I can never play to a square that I'm putting you in check in. So I think that bishop to f6 is maybe the best try. Because now if we retreat, black has to be better here. But there might also be another, shocker. Like I think rook here is probably
Wait, so
the
wait, what was the
the most.
move? Back up a bit. What was the move leading up to bishop there? Was there a piece there?
So if I went here, this
Or
is bad
no, just back up to
because of
how did
because of
bishop
knight.
how did bishop d5 come into place to start? Did it capture
Oh
something?
yeah, yeah. So bishop
Oh,
d5 was
okay.
to take.
Okay.
So we're down a piece, right? And then we take here to fork, and then we play queen g2. And if we take, this is terrible. This is I think maybe borderline lost, if not already lost. So I don't think we can play this. And that really only gives me another option, which is bishop f6 to try and win the rook. But then we'll see here. And after takes and takes, I mean, you got to say that white has to be better just because two pieces, this dynamic is super powerful. So I am liking white here, even though we have two pieces for a rook and a pawn, and engine might say this is level, and maybe even two pawns. I think that white's activity is terrifying here. What are we thinking the eval is if we get to a position like this?
Yeah, I mean computers are brutal and they love extra material. So yeah, let's go. I'm gonna go plus 2.8.
White's favor?
Oh wait, sorry. Was there on the? Who's got the material advantage here? Okay, let me.
Okay, no,
Can you?
I'm making
Uh,
sure. No, you're the black has material advantage,
okay.
but
Yeah, yeah.
I'm asking if it's white's favor or black's.
I thought White had two pieces for the rook, so I'm actually
They
totally
do.
off
No, they
base.
do. They do. They do. They have two pieces. It's a rook and two pawns for two pieces. So there's that imbalance.
So it's
Um,
actually pretty dynamic here. Okay, let me get your eval first since I'm clearly kind of shooting off.
I I'm gonna say white is slightly better, just because of activity. But I would have given something like zero point 0.8
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, yeah. With the total dynamic balance, it's not going to be like totally favoring one side. So I'm gonna actually let me just say the pawns are gonna go just to be a variance. I'll go minus 0.5.
0.5. And you know, it could, so you're saying black is slightly better. I think
Yeah,
that's also
just
very
just
reasonable.
just to be a contrarian here. Let's see how it
Yeah.
goes.
We'll see. The eval says I mean, yeah,
Ah,
1.1.5. So it's
yeah.
actually one above what I thought.
I always got to value the pieces. They're gonna wrangle those pawns if you play perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. And just optically, it should be fairly intuitive that white is better. And I think Chris was just saying, black's better to be contrarian, saying, material matters. But I think we can see just this queen is going to be, kicked around. And so white is going to be getting a lot of tempo. And in fact, the engine doesn't even like this free pawn. It says, get your king out of their castle and try and play for activity because you're going to get stuck really soon. Um, so, and let's actually see what the engine thinks here. In this position,
Well, what did the engine think of bishop d5 initially?
back here,
Yeah.
bishop d5 is top move. Yeah, this is fine.
Ah, but it's still
And then
zeros.
queen takes is a blunder,
Okay.
apparently. What you should do is just take right away. Um, and this is probably what I would have played too, but Ryan is trying to spice things up and create some winning chances. And after queen to e2 top move, the engine gives a really cold-blooded just castles. And yeah, the point is I'm X-raying. So you can't move your bishop without losing your other bishop, and I miss this, but it's still +1 for white because yeah, this
Well,
this queen takes d4 just doesn't look right, and it's clearly not right because it just
it's
gives too much play.
it's an interesting topic though because it looks pretty fancy, and I'm actually anti fancy moves myself. I play everything super safe, and but I know Connor, you play some pretty fancy moves. So what?
Yeah.
How do you decide? What is too much when you're playing on the edge?
Well, in this position, I really do like activity. Like I will sack pieces for activity. Um, and in fact, the computer likes sacking here. Goes knight b5 is the best move, which I didn't even look at, but wow, what a pretty play after I see it. But here, I'm counting pieces. I see, we have one extra piece. And we also have the move, so it has to be better for white somehow. And if worse comes to worse, I can take here, and I'm gonna win back my material. Maybe not the cleanest, and I'd actually never play this, but worst comes to worst.
Well, I'm
I
still
think
kind of
that
shocked by knight b5 there. So wait, knight b5 c takes. What's happening?
yeah, if you do c takes, I think
Bishop c3. I see.
yeah, bishop c3 makes good sense. I'm just trying to think what I would have played. I probably would have taken here because I see tactics. To mate the king, or not mate the king, but at least win material. And yeah, now maybe I go bishop c3, and if you back up, I'm winning your queen, so you can't back up. So, but yeah, I might have chosen bishop c3 after I saw that I can play it in a different order.
See, yeah, that's what I'm talking about with classical tactics, though. I mean,
Now queen
if you
b6
can
doesn't
play
work.
knight b5 and win a classical game, that's when you're gonna be like in the nursing home, being like, oh yeah, I remember when I beat Ryan with
Whoever.
knight b5, and then you'll have like this stream on your like favorites list and your Chrome links,
Yep.
and watch it back and be like, oh yeah, can't believe I found
Yeah.
knight b5.
Yeah, this is a very pretty move. But we see what I thought was going to be played. We see actually no, we don't see it. We still see him thinking, which is a little surprising, but okay. Oops, this is one of the lines that we looked at. Let me go back. So this is the live position, and yeah, castles is the best to play. But that is a really hard move to find. So, but we'll see. We'll see. Uh, let's clean this up. There we go. And then let's look at the next game. So this is Vincent versus Albert. Is Albert playing the premiere section this month? I think he is.
Yes.
So this is another premiere section game. And so we see Albert Yang with the white pieces playing pawn t4, Vincent going knight to f6, being very confrontational. Just going to speed through this because this
I
is
mean,
all opening.
I mean, oh yeah, okay, yeah. Vincent's the one's being confrontational for sure. Yeah, we see a lot of Alekhine in the club, so it's a bit
Yeah,
risky,
we do.
but
This is all seen before. This is nothing new. Yep, bishop to f5. And this is the main plan. Knight to d7. Yep, back up, and then we see pawn here. And the point of black is that even though it looks like we're creating a hole here, it's not really easy for white to, excuse me, get anything there because we need to get, a knight here and here, but if it steps here, we're going to eat it almost no matter what. And if you go bishop here, we're just trading. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to clamp down on this d5 square so that white can never push, and then we're going to long-term try and play against this backwards pawn.
to me it kind of looks like a worse version of Scandi because like if I could pull that c5 pawn back to c4, like then I can be flexible with it.
And so white is very, struggling in this position because they've given up this square, and now we can never push. Whereas, in the Scandinavian, white's plan is to play d5 and create this break before black can do anything, and that's how white gains an advantage. So this has to be, maybe the engine will say equal, but slightly preferable for black as a human. We see knight to f6, very reasonable play. b4. Knight in, takes. This is a little bit of a surprise. So Vincent is trying to fix his pawns and claim a stake in the center, and that makes sense. But you really should not be taking. What we should be playing is queen takes. And the idea of queen takes is we're going to swing our rook over, and we're going to have long-term pressure against this pawn the rest of the game. So taking with the pawn, even though it's, not a blunder or anything, is a positional, mistake. Even if the engine says it's not bad, it's not what you should be playing because now you don't have any real ideas as black. This is just a boring, dry maneuvering game, and white is going to win this maneuvering game because they have more breaks. So white should have an edge here. Yeah, and after a4, castles, b5, exactly what I thought was going to happen happened, and then we see what a weird play, unprovoked. Pawn to f3. In this position, you're thinking of like, bishop here, or maybe I'm calculating trading, but I'm never actually looking at pawn to f3 because this just looks like it creates weaknesses for no reason.
Yeah, maybe we're starting to see like the Albert's profile because he's finding crazy knight takes c5 tactics, a super dynamic play, but then kind of blunting his own
he's
pieces
making
in a
these
quiet position for no
positional
reason.
mistakes. Yeah. Albert is a very dynamic player, and if you watch his games, if you're in a sharp position, you better watch out. But yeah, maybe some of these more quiet positions, maybe this is how you might get an advantage until he starts playing a little bit more and getting familiar. But yeah, this is a very strange play. Pawn to f3. It makes some sense, because you're afraid of this. But if you play like I don't know, a nothing move, and then we see this, I mean, if you want, now you can go f3 and it's with tempo, and this is, I think, a little bit more reasonable. But instead, yeah, we see a different line. So back here, castles here, queen here. Yeah, f3, a little strange, and then queen to c3. And I do like what black is doing. The engine doesn't think it's the most accurate, but this is a very good play. The move that the engine likes and that I liked was bishop g5, and the point is we're just controlling squares. But queen here has, a very similar purpose. You're trying to invade, trying to make it a little uncomfortable. We see pawn to a5, bishop f6. And we're just ganging up on this pawn. And there's no great way to defend it other than dropping our bishop back. And that is what we see. And after rook here, yeah, I mean, really, Vincent is trying to make this complicated and taking it to Albert. And I think he's calculated very well because white should have a superior pawn structure at the end of the day here. And after takes, rook takes. Rook takes is a little strange, actually. I think b takes c is the move that you should play, because this creates a pass pawn that you have to deal with immediately.
Well, Albert's right? So Albert's taking it to Vincent.
Yeah. You're right. Sorry, I'm thinking backwards. But yeah, rook takes is a little weird because this gives a few options just to poke at pieces like yeah, bishop c2. I actually think this is probably a fantastic play because now there's no way to defend this pawn. And what black is realizing here is, this comes with check if we see a trade and trade. But more importantly, this c pawn is now going to be a long-term weakness because we're not going to have anything supporting it. So yeah, we see here. What?
Ooh.
Wait, but this is a free pawn.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. We see queen trade, and maybe a little bit lucky. If you took this pawn, now you have a very juicy pawn that you're staring at with the bishop, and this should have been really good long term.
Well,
But
also look at
okay,
the well, look at the time on the clock there too. Back up for a second because we got to see.
it took 5 minutes to play this move, which is
Okay, so you did calculate. So I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say that's a total. You know, strategic lapse. It's just need to hit those puzzles.
maybe he just
Hit
didn't
those
quite
puzzles a
understand.
bit more.
Yeah, and maybe the fear was after takes. I'm walking into this, and now this is really scary. But it doesn't work because you take here, so you can't play there.
Yeah. So
So after this,
what I was worried about seeing was like the move played in 30 seconds with 51 minutes on the clock in a critical position. That's a different story than thinking for 5 minutes.
yeah, very true. Yeah, because in this position, the best play is here, which is not. I mean, this makes good sense, but I don't think what the players were looking at, because after takes, you almost need to see queen takes, because if you see king takes, this is just you're going to lose quickly. And actually, Engine is pointing out even more menacing because now the queen has access up here, here.
Yeah,
So
probably
you could avoid.
only a Bond Club main would see that as their primary candidate.
Yeah, yeah. No, queen takes I think is the best play, and then I already have a red carpet laid out, so may as well start pushing. But instead, we see takes, rook takes, pawn takes, 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 and now white has to be slightly better. The engine, okay, never mind. I missed this check and blocks takes. But yeah, no, I mean, white still has to be very slightly better because their pawn is closer, and they're a little bit tied up. It's a little hard to move, but honestly, nothing too big. Rook to c8 just blunders this pawn. What Albert probably should have done is taken the free pawn. There's no reason not to take that pawn. In fact, I'm really confused why he didn't. In this position, what you should do is you should start running your king in. So, king here, I don't know, king here, something like this. In this position, it won't work because we win by one move. So we could throw this in, then come here, and then bring our king in. But you should really be trying to play for activity rather than this, which gives up a pawn, which, luckily for Vince, Albert doesn't see. And yeah, now rook to c7, we're defending this. And,
Yeah, to me,
white still has to be for choice, but it's not as clean.
I get
So
paranoid
here,
about my back rank as soon as the queens come off. So I would have
yeah,
been I would have been making making room for my king a long time ago.
yep. Yeah, in this position, white is clearly better just because this pawn is so far advanced. But it's not a super easy position to we see here, king to c5, and one thing to note is block with the bishop seems okay. This would be a terrible blunder. Oops. That would be a terrible blunder. A little bit of looking here. So blocking with the bishop would be a terrible blunder here because we need to keep our king next to this pawn to keep the king out. So we're going to see Albert keep his king by this pawn so the king can't get in, and he'll babysit this pawn for a majority of the game because even if we play here, our rook is tied up. We're not really going to be happy. So yeah, he'll stop here. Bishop e6, very reasonable. Pawn to g6. H4 is a little weird, but sure. G6 is fine. Yeah, and all these moves are very interesting. Now, one thing I don't like that Albert is doing is he's putting his pawns all on the same color as the black bishop, which is going to create long-term targets. But in this case, I don't think it matters so much because we can't really do anything with it. I think f5 is calling to be played here, and it is played. And it's going to make it complicated, but yeah.
Back up just a moment. What if he just goes after him with bishop b3 instead of f5?
With what?
With bishop b3.
Bishop b3, what is the threat? You're trying to go bishop d1?
Yeah.
I mean, if you go here, I'm going to, here and here. And now you can't even push f5. And now you have this really ugly backwards pawn.
Got it.
Yep, and then actually once I do this, now my rook is free. So this is not so strong. So f5, yeah, bishop back, takes, and then bishop here. Very flashy, but yeah,
Yeah.
we just have to f3. So we're still safe. And after king up, we see very surprising play. Very surprising play. I would not have expected this. This just yeah, this allows for this tempoing move, which I think maybe he missed that I'm tempoing, and then after I run my king in, now I'm fine. Uh, what? Okay. So in this position, we have to play king to d6 here. And the big idea of king to d6 is that we're going to be, keeping an eye on this while also applying another attacker or more pressure on this pawn right here. And actually, there's only one move in this position that lets white keep any edge. Otherwise, it's just zeros. You have to find rook to d5. Otherwise, you've drawn the game. So I'm surprised we didn't see king to d6. Instead, we see here. But yeah, this is also not the play. So what we probably want to do here is go rook to d5 still. And the idea is we're just going to escort our pawn. We want to come here. The king's cut off. We're going to start pushing, something like this. But okay, so we see check, king over, and yeah, this is probably drawing. Check, king to c7, and now this pawn is completely blockaded. Um, in fact, I think you can even get away with taking here, which I'm kind of surprised we didn't see. Maybe
Yeah.
thought this was scary, but
Well,
this is
I, I,
like paper tigers.
I feel like you have to have read like all of Van Perlo's endgame tactics to instantly cringe at that move because it doesn't look like too horrible to me, but it is
Yeah, maybe.
it is pretty quickly, and it is kind of showing how difficult these games are to close out, especially against a guy like Connor, because there's just this wrinkle after wrinkle after wrinkle when it comes to the end game, and so it really goes to show, like if you study your end games, you're gonna turn your losses into wins or your losses into draws. You're gonna turn your won games into easily won games.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, knowing all these ideas, of course, you had to do a lot of studying, and I've done a lot of studying on this. So a lot of these positions I've just seen before, so that's why I'm saying this is surprising, but yeah, in this position we have this blockade, so we're never going to make any progress. And the big thing about this blockade is this bishop is defending these squares, so we can't get our rook in. This rook is controlling this rank, and we don't have a dark squared bishop to push this king off the square. So he's just going to sit here forever, and you'll never be able to make progress. So very, very drawish now. And we see rook to a5. Yeah, we bring our king up because there's no rush. And I actually would have just gone back because this is a scary pawn. But I think Vince wants to play for more. So we see here, rook here, very, very reasonable play. And yeah, I'm not seeing any winning chances anywhere. Probably going to see rook to h8. Yep. And then now Vince is going to try and create some winning chances of his own. Because Albert gave him the shot to do this. Rook to h7 check. Yeah, this is just a nothing move because you're going to come here. You're going to defend this pawn square from the rook, and back. Are we going to see a repetition? We did see a repetition, but they're playing on. Interesting.
both
So
ambitious.
both of them, neither of them claimed a draw by repetitions. They're both trying to win this, which is, admirable, but a little surprising because I think this feels very easy. But um, really, he's trying to go for it. Both of them are trying to win this, and this I think is a clean blunder. This is just a free pawn. Rook h7 here. Yeah, in this position, Black has to be winning. I mean, I would be shocked if it was any result but a win. You're gonna go rook here, and then there's nothing that can really stop this
Well,
pawn so easily.
the game result is showing white won.
I have a feeling that is a mistake. Unless Vince flagged.
Yeah, does it show the times? Like all of a sudden the
Not
times disappeared.
yeah, the times just disappeared. I'm I'm very confused.
Yeah, look at 102 and Vince is at nothing. Go to keep back up a bit and see if his time goes up. Like where's the timestamps?
Yeah, they've disappeared. Interesting. Maybe there was just no clock in this game from the start. But I'm really shocked if Albert actually got the win here. Maybe there were more moves played and they just didn't come in, and Vince under time trouble or under time pressure, missed something. But this looks completely good for Black. Interesting. Well, if Albert did win, very surprising result. I mean, this is probably objectively a draw, but I mean, I'd give -1 to Black. What are you thinking here?
Yeah. I don't even know about objectively draw. I mean, I feel like objectively, like the computer will probably win it against another computer. Um,
Maybe.
so, but also it could be zeros. So it's either zeros or it's like minus, or it's like made in 30 or something. So
Right.
I'm gonna go mate in 30.
In 30. Well, it says -2. Which it's better, but I'm not fully. I think Black should win this because it's humans playing. But I have a feeling that if we were playing against the engine, we probably wouldn't be able to win this.
Uh-oh.
And the engine makes it look easy. He'll walk his king in, or I guess he just says push right away and then deal with the consequences later. But
We're
yeah,
s- we're
this
s-
is.
we're slow rolling because we haven't gotten to board 6 and 7 at all yet. But we already have Eddie in the chat, and
Oh yeah.
we see a decisive result on his board. So
Yeah,
maybe
we'll take a look once we finish
yeah.
the last two games.
We'll get the last two games, and then we'll get to your game, Eddie.
Yeah. All right. So let's take a look at this one. Kevin versus Daniel. So Daniel has the white pieces, and we say E4, and we see Sicilian.
This is open section.
Yes, this is the open section. Thank you for pointing that out. Knight to F6, E5, knight to D5, still all seen before.
Alpin style.
Very Alapin style, yes. None of this is particularly new. C takes, knight takes, and bishop check, and bishop blocks, takes. And I think this is still all seen before. This is a little surprising though. They're taking a while, so maybe they haven't looked at this before. So one thing to note is normally when a player is like in theory they know what they're doing, they play pretty quickly. But already in this position, each side is down about 10 minutes, so they're maybe not familiar with this type of structure. But regardless, that means over the board they're finding the best moves, move after move after move. So they're playing a fantastic game, but they're already down to an hour each in this position, and yeah, their time is down to 48 minutes here, 45. So very, very good play though. I think all the way up until bishop to d2, this was all seen before. But yeah, no, this is a very well played match so far. So we see knight to b6. I'm not actually sure I'm fully understanding knight to b6 in this position. I think more natural is, rook 8 to c8 or rook f to d8, and just put your rooks on the file, because you're tying down the knight on f3 when you do this, which I think is valuable in this position, but it's also like not such a big deal. So developing here, maybe the plan is to come here and attack this way. I'm not entirely sure. I would have picked the other knight if I was going to do, that sort of attack, just because it's an additional attacker, but I'm not really sure what the plan is. So we see pawn to a3. I'm also not entirely following what the concept of a3 is. Maybe okay. I think we're playing pawn to b4. Yeah. Which is a very interesting plan.
Maybe he was also worried about knight b4 or knight d3 or something.
That could also be, yeah. I didn't. I don't think it's a bad play. It was just I'm trying to figure out what plan they're playing for, because in chess, you try and look for concepts and plans to play for. It's impossible to play like a computer where the engine just says +3 with this weird pawn move that doesn't make sense to humans. Humans play for like an objective or a plan. And I think maybe Chris is right. He's trying to prevent some knight to b4 scary moves, because maybe there's some tactics and we'd like to avoid that. So yeah, okay, we see rook to d8, which I think is very nice. Queen
I,
to
I,
c1.
I feel like we're kind of seeing a theme with both players though. They're moving a lot of pieces before they finish their development.
Yeah,
I feel like in general you just want to get all your pieces done and then you take step two, and they're kind of like starting with step two before they
yeah.
finish step one.
They're trying to win out of the opening, which sometimes will work, but I don't think there's enough in this position to do that. Okay, we see queen to c1, rook to c8, and yeah, I think black has a very clean edge here.
And yeah, now
And
Black's finally all they really did was complete their step one, and all of a sudden they have a clean edge. You
yeah,
know,
I'm a little surprised. So, like Chris was saying before, trading here I think is I actually think it's okay, but white could have also finished their development here and then finish their step one. But actually, I do like trading. I'm just pointing that out. Yeah, and their concept was to do it the other way around, which also makes sense. And we see trade, knight back into the center. And yeah, this is probably slightly better for black, but nothing big. We see bishop back, and really an aggressive game. We're bringing our rooks in, and we're going to try and create some chaos on white's second rank. So we see rook to b1. We double up. I'm not so sure about this doubling up. I'm not sure what the concept is here. I think maybe scarier would have been something like knight to b6 in this position, because we unleash our rook, and we're maybe going to put this on a better square. Because even though this knight looks pretty, every single square is controlled. We can't place our knight anywhere. So even though it looks nice and centralized, it's not actually doing a whole lot.
well, and that comes with the
But okay,
threat.
so
It comes with the direct threat of uh, winning two pieces for a rook too. So
yeah, exactly. Let's say we play a nothing move. Now the game is going to be over after takes and takes and takes. Two pieces for one rook is just a little bit too much, because the two pieces have very nice activity here, and so this would be a decisive edge if you're careful.
yeah, especially since
And so
they really only have two open files too, so it's just obvious because you can put your knight on d5 and you can play
exactly.
b6 and play bishop c5 or something, or just try to control the c5 with your other rook, and you can kind of say how good are the rooks. If the rooks are pretty good and they're jumping in and they're targeting backwards pawns and they're
Exactly.
skewering
Then maybe it's
pieces, it's a different story. But here it's just not. That's never going to happen.
yeah, exactly. And that's exactly how I'm evaluating the position. But instead, we see doubling up rooks, which I guess makes sense conceptually speaking. Doubling rooks is usually good. But in this case, I don't know if I'd go for it, because this allows rook e to c1, which is what we see. And now after takes and takes and takes and takes, now there's no advantage. This is just a draw. And yeah, we see bishop c5, king to f1. Very boring game. We're bringing our pieces in. B5, I actually like this play. It's a little bit ambitious. I would have actually gone a5 and then b5. And the reason I would go a5 is maybe I can get a push. And white never really wants to push, because then gives us some maybe long-term positional play. But b5 makes sense. Knight in, and we kick out the knight. Yeah, there's really just nothing to play for. We see knight there. Yeah, very very boring dry chess. And actually we see a surprising play. I mean, I understand this play. We're afraid of being forked, but I'm not so sure this fork is bad for us. But okay, so we see takes, knight check, and the players agreed to a draw. So very very boring endgame. Once we traded everything off, I thought black was slightly for choice, especially back here after knight here. But it's still very tricky, because white has something like bishop to c3, for example. And maybe now I even have to go back now that I look at the position. So still a lot to play. What is your evaluation of a position like this, though? Because I think we can both agree that it's zeros in the very last final position. But what about in this one?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me evaluate here. Materials equal, but that rook looks a little sus to me for black. So I'm definitely preferring white. A little worried about my rook, but gotta calculate, I
I
guess.
mean, if all else fails, I can come here and hit your bishop, and now my rook is no longer in danger because you have to move. So
Yeah, but knight d5 and knight d4.
uh, knight to d4, I take, and then I hit your rook.
Nice, comes with
Yeah,
tempo. So,
exactly.
and then I guess you're not really happy about your pawn on e5, kind of blunting the activity of your bishop. So,
Yep.
um, I would say this is definitely a kind of move by move position, but so not super easy to just flip the engine on, but positionally probably a little better for black.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. I'd give like 0.3, honestly. I'd say very close to zeros. Very, very close. Unless there's a knockout blow. This is a very solid position. So there's not a lot like because even moves like this look tempting, but they don't work. Because yeah, Knight D4, and now we're very sad. So yeah.
Yeah,
Let's check. The engine says interesting, it says -2. Because of Bishop C5, which is the move I was looking at, but I didn't think it was that bad. Okay, now that I look at it, I actually understand. Because you almost, well, okay. This is tragic. It says that this is the best play, and when it's saying this weird move is the best play, that's meaning something went wrong. But after here, knight to a4, and I just realized you're losing one of your pawns. So
so
so I guess
nice to have the rook on the seventh, even if it looks a little trapped. You're
yeah,
gonna
and
it's gonna enable tactics.
if we didn't have this tactic, though, every other move is 0.3, 0.4. So it is zeros if we don't have this trick. I did look at this. I just didn't realize how strong it was because I missed the power of knight a4. But yeah, very, very
Yeah.
interesting. This just shows you how strong engines are.
Well, my other reaction to some of these games is I feel like the risk threshold changes throughout the game. Like they get to some super critical position in the middle game and play the most risk averse move, and
Yep.
then and then they get to a totally equal end game and then they start taking risk.
Yeah,
It's like, why not just buckle down and take the risk in your critical position earlier if you want to play for the win?
I agree. Yep.
But I also get
All right.
it.
Let's move on to
That
the
you want
last
it,
game.
that you can get frustrated and then you want to just keep pushing though.
Yes. All right. The very last game is Norm versus Asher. We see d4, knight f6.
Okay, so
Very standard opening. Norm is playing white. He's played this several times, and I think he's even taken down Eddie or got close to taking down Eddie with this opening. So it's something he's very, very familiar with. You see rook to c1, push, takes, um, bishop to f5. This is already looking, I think, a little bit scary. Okay, you know,
yeah, you got to develop.
yeah. This is surprising. In this position, I'm surprised we didn't see something like knight takes here, um, because it looks a little bit more principled. Even though we have a nice knight in the center,
Yeah, he wants knight check.
yeah, I guess yeah, I was looking for takes, and I was dreaming of making a line like this work, where I can sack my queen. But I think Norm did more calculation than me because this is nothing. We're just down a pawn. So yeah, takes I think is very reasonable. Bishop blocks, knight in, knight back. Wow, yeah, very, very nice.
Ooh,
And even though this looks really weird, and black is definitely better, I think this is very practical as a choice, just
I
to
feel,
to
I
make
feel
sure that
like
you're.
I feel like White's on the verge of losing.
Yeah, I mean definitely. You look at this position, and white has to be worse. Um,
I feel
Okay,
like
we
I feel like if it was me, even back up right here, I'm already starting to calculate every capture.
yeah, no, definitely right. I'm surprised we didn't see Knight
Yeah,
here in
to
this
me,
position.
I'm already like this is a tactics puzzle, and I'm looking at knight takes c3. I'm looking at rook takes c3, knight g4, everything.
Instead, we see this and f3. This is absolutely wild. Yeah, queen to e6, f f2, and yeah, Norm is just gonna try and triple up and create some chaos. And we see him,
Well, why trade
you know,
first?
yeah, queen to d6. Queen
Yeah,
d6 is maybe
I
not so accurate, but I think we blunder this pawn. I think if we're gonna play something like
was
that, we
rooks.
should
What do you
go.
mean his rooks hanging?
Yeah, yeah. No, you're right. I missed this for some reason. And after check here and blocks, actually the game just ended. I think that white just threw in the towel. Yeah, because it's check, so you're actually forcing the queen trade. And now what do? You're down a full rook. So this is how the game ends. And even though they didn't put the results on the board, I can almost guarantee you that white is not going to be winning this. So
Yeah,
black should get the victory.
brutal.
Very brutal, yes. Let's go back and look at Eddie's game because I want to see how this one ended. Yeah. So we see bishop takes f5
Yeah,
check,
this is
queen up.
the game. This is the game coming from the principled opening.
Yep. That's very principled. Sure. Yeah, and this is a very nice play because long term, we don't want this pawn to push. So this just stops any tricks later on. We see
Yeah,
rook swing over, give a
like
check.
Eddie came in the chat and said he thought this was a very up and down game, but from my perspective,
Oh, we completely win.
this is just a piece up conversion from the start. So I don't know what he's talking about, but
From the start, Eddie made no mistakes. Yeah, Eddie played a very clean game.
yeah,
We see b3
and this is nice.
and
This is
king back. Yeah,
Eddie's really Robert was a rival for him. Oh, he was 0-4. Now he's 1-4. So he slayed the demon.
yeah, exactly.
Always feels good to beat an opponent who really has your number. So good job to
Yeah,
Eddie on this game.
yeah. This is very nice chess, and you've won another pawn, and yeah, very nice finish. Uh, you can't really take here, and if you take here, I think this is good enough. I think you can actually sack your piece because these pawns are going to end up winning you the game. We're just a little bit too slow. If we had one more move, maybe we can get here. But we step here, and this is a very easy conversion. So instead, we see pawn to a4. And after check, we get behind the pawn and just start pushing. And there's nothing you can do. And now we stop your pawn from queening, and Robert throws in the towel in this position. So very, very clean conversion, a very nice match by Eddie. Just fantastic play.
Yeah, that was quite the opening too. Yeah, Eddie tried to insist on King's Gambit, but Robert wasn't having any of it, and led to some pretty crazy
Yeah.
dynamics. But Eddie ended up on top, so nice game. I see we got a
Let's look
result. We got results on
in.
board one too. We skipped off board one.
Yes, I'm gonna do UV and Dane because
Okay.
their was a little faster. And yeah, UV played exactly what we were talking about. And after trade, there's just no play, and that's the hard thing. I can just yeah, exactly bishop g6, and you can't move your pieces. And this is why it's so dominant. And yeah, king to f8, what a fantastic play. This technique is incredible. And Dane is forced to just sack a pawn for basically nothing because he doesn't have play. And yeah, trade pieces. This is just too much. Now you're up a clean piece. You had to give back the two pawns, and you're defending everything. And yeah, we're gonna see UV run his king in, and rook f3. Sure, takes, check, king up, rook down,
Just clean.
and after bishop d5, there's nothing to play for, and Dane just throws in the towel. And yeah, and the problem is there's just nothing you can do. Let's say you come here to attack the bishop, doesn't matter. I'm just taking. You're pinned. We're trading. Um, or if we play something like takes, I can just take, and your pawn is going to drop in the database. One, two, every single move. There is not a single move that can do anything. Like let's say here, I take or I take. And both of these are good enough. And of course, the cleanest one is take here because you trade off the pieces, but there's just no play. And that's the big issue. So very
Well,
clean conversion by
I'm
UV.
I'm I'm pretty happy about the results on boards 2 and 3 because I feel like I'm the ultra principal player. Connor is the risk
I'm a
taker,
little bit
and board 2, the huge risk taker got punished. Board 3, dubious piece sack, getting punished in a clean fashion. So score 2 for the principal guys, and dubious guys not doing so hot tonight.
yeah. Well, let's take a look at this game. So in this position, we see rook to d1, which is just a very interesting play. We see takes. Interesting. Yeah, I'm really liking white now. Sorry, black now. But it's still tricky. So in this position, we see bishop f6, and then h4, h5, g4, hg, queen g, queen to e7, queen to f4, creating some attacking chances again. And then we see a very gutsy move, in my opinion.
That development is just. I mean, what's going on with this development?
Yeah, I'm
I mean, he's playing.
I'm actually still really
He's
liking
playing a piece down right now. I mean,
here,
he's
queen
got
to
no king
g7
safety, but there's
to
interesting
d6.
dynamics because I kind of like white. I
I
mean,
can't.
I don't have king safety, but I've got all the piece activity.
Yeah, and then I guess knight to f6 is called for here. But instead, unfortunately, we see a really bad blunder. So I think knight to f6 is like the only move that you can play here. I don't see any other play. Maybe you could, argue knight to e5 or knight to c5, but I think knight to f6 is just principled. But instead, we see rook to f8, and this is just a terrible blunder. It blunders this fork, and we
I've
would
been
love
there.
to capture the knight, but we're pinned, so we can't. So yeah, this game ends rather abruptly from what I thought was a better position for black, but this happens. Long game, a lot of thinking, and yeah, it's just Miles is able to find this trick. In this position, what do we think the eval is before blundering the queen?
Well, let's count the material. White has a piece less,
Yeah, and
and
2 pawns less.
and
Piece and
no
two
and
pawns.
no king safety yet. See, I was favoring the dynamics until I count the material. But
Yeah,
black's extra pieces are undeveloped, but I mean they are just extra. So
and maybe this is the play. Now I'm looking
yeah,
at
I
it.
mean you got it. Computers are brutal, so I mean computers are just going to take this extra material, defend perfectly, and win easily. So I would say, unless there's just a total knockout, but I don't think there is. So I'm going to say this is -3.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna say a little bit more than that because after knight to e5, my pieces do come to life, actually quite quickly. So I'm gonna say -4. And the computer actually says it's -1 after knight to f6. So knight f6, my initial instinct
Well,
is
let's
correct.
play your move. What's it like? What's there?
Knight f6 is the move I probably would have picked, but knight to e5 looks a little more active. But yeah, after knight
Oh
e8
yeah,
and
taking the rook with check.
takes, you take here,
Okay, yeah,
which
because
is
you
why you go
knight of six.
here.
Yeah, you need to recapture the knight so the queen can protect the bishop.
Yeah,
Not easy.
no, but if you do this, this is -5. So you can't even take. What you have to do is you have to go take here, and then after rook to h8, um, move away, queen d4. I think makes sense, but it's still, it's a game. We'll
So
develop, or maybe not here. Maybe to hit the rook actually makes more sense because now we have tempo, and then maybe we can try and trade. But we're gonna develop and try and make something happen. And now actually, after playing the top move, after every move, it's -3. So I think Chris is right with the -3.
yeah, so my question here is, did Nathan opt into this kind of lack of development for this -3 position, or did kind of Miles force him into it? Because this is kind of why
Yeah.
I don't love playing on the edge stuff, because even if I'm totally winning, I need to find only moves, and then it's just brutal.
Yeah, this H5 I actually think is really surprising. I mean, it makes sense, but Miles has to go for it, and unless you've calculated G4 all the way to the end, I'm not willing to play it. I'm gonna
He's
try and
worried about
vanilla it. I'm
H5.
gonna go
Okay.
rookie 6 and knight here, and then
Yeah,
say all of my pieces are swarming. Um,
but
what can you
you
do?
can't totally hate on H5. It's kind of natural. So
I
it's
mean,
not like he's
H5.
like massively neglecting his development. So he kind of just fell behind.
Well, H5 is asking for you to be attacked, though. That was the
Yeah.
only reason I was surprised to see it.
Hmm.
Something like this, and the reason I'm playing King to H1, by the way, is because the computer says this is the like top move. Um, but this is -5, and I'm in this position. H5 is completely losing. But I'm surprised we didn't see like a rook to E6 or maybe a queen to E7, create some threats against this piece in case something moves later on. It also frees up your knight to move and maybe trade off, because I mean these are just empty moves. There's no threat after H5. So I was a little surprised to see it, but I'm also not like shocked because it does look like a natural play.
Yeah. To me, as black though, I just hate. It's move 18. My pieces aren't developed, and then my knight is pinned. That's required to develop the rest of my pieces. Kind of liking how Miles played the game. I mean, you can see how it led to what happened, even though it was ultimately a better position for Nathan. Um,
Lots of tricks though.
it's all his pieces were playing, and several of Nathan's weren't, and that's just like a recipe for a very difficult game for your opponent.
Yep.
Um, and it wasn't like too. It wasn't in like it wasn't in Dane style where he played knight takes g5 and you're just taking obscene risk. You know, it was winning for black if black found computer moves, but it was definitely in a way that you press it in a really difficult way to play against as a human. So,
Yep. Exactly.
and you tax someone long enough like that, that leads to brutal blunders like what happened, because
Exactly.
that wasn't just played in isolation, it was played in desperation. He really wants to get his light square bishop developed, he really wants to get his queen unpinned, he wants to solve all these problems. It's so annoying. And
You slip,
yep.
and it happens.
So nice game by Miles.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at the very last match being played. So we left off, we leave off castles. I think we left off right after queen to e2. So let's get to queen to e2. So it takes. And then after queen d5, we saw queen e2. And in this position, we saw bishop f6, which is what I thought was going to get played. And it makes good sense. And yeah, after rook to e4, we saw bishop takes, bishop takes. And this is remember how this was the position we were trying to evaluate, and I said plus whatever. This is exactly what we got. And in this case, we see bishop to e3, queen to b4, just tickling the pawn. Rook to d1, sure, makes sense. And after castles looks really shaky to me, and I'm gonna turn off the engine. Um, so the move that I'm immediately liking is g5 because your bishop is trapped. So you have to play something like f6 or f5. But then I can go g6 and just try and tear open your king since my bishops are pointing towards you. So I think that's,
Yeah, and
at least to me, that's intimidating.
to me it's a common blunder too, because this is the type of move I actually blunder to stronger players myself all the time. Just some detail like, oh, my bishop's trapped. I want to keep developing. I want to keep playing straightforward moves, but
Yeah, you
You
got to
know,
watch out for your pitches.
strong, very strong players will all of a sudden just be like, oh, that's a wrinkle. And
Yeah, G5 I think forces F6, or maybe you can get away with F5, um, and then go F4 yourself. Um, in fact, that might actually be that might be good. So maybe this is still not good, but G5 is what I would play. But okay, we see bishop to D4, which is a very solid play. Pawn C, sure, pawn C5, pawn A3, queen to A5. This is there's something I'm missing. Why aren't we taking the B2 pawn?
I was worried about rook b1, rook takes b7, maybe.
Oh, rook B1, queen takes A3. Your bishop is still hanging.
Yep.
And then I'm gonna go B6.
Just thinking about what
Um,
you might be superficially worried about.
yeah, okay. And I'm gonna double check, but yeah, queen B2 is fine. Queen A5 is the top move, so they're clearly, they're clearly seeing something. So queen to A5, bishop D5,
Yeah. Also, there's
uh,
Connor. There's also something to clarify because not everyone thinks like you. Like Connor's like, oh man, queen. I don't see why queen takes b2 is wrong, so I'm gonna just take it. And other people are like, well, there's probably something wrong, and it looks risky. He's gonna be able to counterattack my queen. Like he's gonna be able to play knight a4. He's gonna be able to play rook b1. So
yeah,
most people aren't quite
I
as capable as you. You've got like
I'm
cold blood running through your veins, and not all of us do. And I feel
yeah, I'm very much I calculated if I don't see it, I'm playing it.
and it also
It can look terrifying, but
sometimes it leads to your own blunders too. Because you're probably a little
yeah,
bit too
absolutely.
cold blooded. But
Maybe, yeah. No, I always make my opponent prove it, no matter what. So
it's brutal to
anyway,
play against though, because I definitely don't like playing against cold blooded opponents because you have to sit there and stress out every single move. Uh, you know, there's certain moves I just know this my opponent's not. He's not going to sack. He's not going to. He's not that type of player. But he's not going to let me attack his king brutally, just
yeah,
to grab a pawn. But when I'm playing Connor, I know he might just. Oh, he's going to grab that pawn and say, oh, I don't see how you're mating me. So that's a
yeah.
pawn.
That's usually that's my style. So very true. Yeah, in this position though, I mean, I think White is just killing. Now we're starting to attack. There's not really a lot we can do here. I think takes is maybe the only play. Otherwise, we're just down a piece because I don't see any, counter shots or counter tricks
Yeah, and
because
that's
this is not working. Because one we can just take here, right? And after takes check here, takes here. Unfortunately, this is not quite working because we can play here, and our bishop is
yep.
is doing a great job. Or I think also maybe
Well,
the move that I would pick is like knight
anyway,
here
there's no
here.
there. Just make sure there's no
Call it.
issue with g6 and rook g8. Yeah, no, yeah, rook g8 would be just bishop takes.
Yeah. So maybe you just coach here and defend that. But no, this doesn't work because of G5. So maybe
That actually, that somebody just blundered that in the Olympiad. Uh, Super GM.
yeah.
He blundered
So
a pawn
maybe
fork with that in one
maybe
move.
maybe maybe yeah, maybe the sad just retreat, which is good enough for sure. But I'm always greedy. I'm trying to eat pawns. I'm gonna see. The engine thinks just retreating is fine. Um, yep. But yeah, once we play here, white is just positionally doing fantastic. I would let me delete this. Um, but yeah, I think that this is a very nice position to have as white. I don't feel any major risk that I'm gonna blunder something unless I'm doing my greedy pawn grabbing moves. Um, so what are we thinking about this position?
But yeah, this one is too rich for my blood. I'd probably lose it on both sides. But you know, gonna favor white just based on Connor's explanations, and I
Yeah,
love those brother bishops. They are very well
exactly.
placed. So
Yeah, I would. I mean, I would give white like a what is the material? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven on five. Okay, so I'd probably give a +1 then, just
see,
because I'm down some material, but I don't think it's that critical.
I only really do way in the good. I only do well in the one-way traffic games. So I need to totally suppress my opponent from the start to end, and then I can make it happen. But if it's like I don't like to engage in fair trades. Like I get some activity, you get some activity. We'll see what happens. I'm
That's
only
not for you.
I'm only about unfair trades. Like I get something, you get nothing. We'll keep doing that until I blunder later.
Yep. Yeah, I am definitely willing to make concessions, which maybe I shouldn't be, but no, in this case, it's a lopsided match because one side has this material imbalance that makes it very hard to evaluate. But I always prefer these active bishops here, especially since one of Black's rooks is not playing yet; it's just sitting on h8. But actually, G6 is a very nice play. I didn't even like seriously consider it, but looking at it, it makes you have to think what to do as white. How do I break this? Because even though I do have the bishop pair, I am technically down. Uh, well, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm miscounting. I have three pieces for a rook. So no, I'm
Well,
completely miscounting. But it's still very tricky because how do you crack black? So
there's something undervalued too about the bishop pair is if you win the game, then afterwards you can talk about it. You can talk about the bishop pair and feel like a super GM. Like I used my classy bishop pair to win with this dynamic advantage, which is what the GMs love. So you know, I'm always going to go for the bishop pair just so I can try to win in that classy way. But
yeah, yeah. In this position, I really don't like. Yeah, really takes. I was expecting G5 bishop to F6 and just plant it there for the rest of the game and make black miserable. But um, instead we see takes,
yeah,
which I think allows some tricks with rook takes,
yeah, I definitely
maybe.
like G5 better
Yeah,
myself too. Because yeah, you just anchor that bishop, and those dark squares are just brutal the rest of the game. And now Black's getting a little bit of counterplay at least.
given a little bit of hope. I don't like giving my opponents any hope, um, but you have to go bishop G3 now, and it's not as happy. Definitely still very good, but not as happy as before.
You give them hope in the opening, so they take some risk, and then no hope in the end
Yeah, once we hit the end
game.
game, you have to be ultra accurate. Otherwise, you're just gonna lose. Yeah, bishop G3, no surprise. Um, I'm actually surprised that Ezekiel took this much time. He's down to a minute, and so is Ryan. They're both down to a minute, and they're both under a minute now. Well, Ezekiel just got +30, so he's no longer under a minute. But I'm surprised it took so long to find such a solid move. We're not trying to calculate out, bishop g3, 30 moves. We play bishop g3 because we can see this is solid, we can't lose, so we should play it. So I was a little surprised by that hesitation there, but
Yeah, and
okay.
they're
And
on
then,
move 29, so they only have 10 moves to get to the next time control. I mean, just kidding. They actually get no next time
yeah,
control, so this is the rest of the game.
this is the rest of the
It's
game.
a blitz game
And
now.
this is down to a blitz game with +30 seconds to move.
Yeah.
And taking the c4 pawn with the queen, yeah, snapped off, and then Ryan instantly moves his king. Um,
You
I
know,
think this is just White's game. White is recovering pawns. I don't see any counterplay, and that's the real problem for Black. Um,
I was actually reading
yeah,
a study today, or or listening to a podcast, and
mhm.
there was a 48-year-old late national master qualifier, so describing his journey, and he had huge time pressure issues, and he researched it empirically and figured out everything there was to know about time pressure to try to solve his issues. And his conclusion was you got to budget your own time and based on the time control and just worry about your own time. But then also he kind of said play from his research, playing on increment reduces your playing strength by 2 to 300 points. And he
Yeah.
said huge number of blunders happen on 5 seconds, under 5 seconds. So
Yep.
if you somehow can manage to never play on it, because as soon as you're playing on increment, you're gonna get under 5 seconds. Like you
Yep.
will at some point. So if you can somehow manage your time extremely well and never play on increment the entire game, then you never have that 200 point playing strength drop. And so
Exactly.
it is kind of a powerful strategy. And I think we do have a lot of time trial addicts in the club who are just like, oh, well, I've got my 30-second increment. 30 seconds feels
Yep.
a, like an hour compared to 3+0 online blitz or something. But
Yeah.
it's it's really you're putting yourself at risk to blunder if you're getting under 10 seconds.
Yeah. I'm completely in agreement with you. And even for me, if I'm under like 10 or 15 minutes, I panic and I'll blunder. Time pressure it gets really tricky very quickly.
But we do see some exceptions like Eddie, who somehow just plays an increment every week and still has good results. But
Yeah.
maybe he'd actually be national master already if he solved his time pressure issues.
Yeah, there we go. Um, yeah, Ryan got down to about 3 seconds there before he made his move. I don't think Black is going to be able to hold this. And Ezekiel is now up to 2 minutes. And yeah, I mean, Black's moves are really hard to find, whereas White's are just they're very natural. So I don't think we're going to be seeing Ryan hold this as Black down to 3 seconds.
Yeah, I feel like I will get down to this time now and then, but like I'm literally about to get mated. Like I'm playing moves where I'm like the the other the other move just loses or something.
Yeah. In this position, this might be a time to pause because King H2 is good, but I think Bishop F1 is just so clean. Actually, to be fair, I think all the moves are pretty clean, but
Yeah,
Bishop
it's just
F1
so
is
much
best.
material. Yeah, now you can just
Yep,
bring the king out, break the pin. I like it. Yeah, plus
exactly.
play bishop d3 and anchor your pawn. Okay.
Yeah. Um, yeah, not a whole lot to do here, but we'll watch them play it out just because yeah, it's interesting. Now you just go C4, start pushing, create an attack, or maybe even Bishop C4. Really nothing to do. And yeah, Bishop C4 is actually I think or C4 or Bishop C4 I think are just game enders right there.
Yeah, for me in positions like this as white, I always just have to be resist any temptation to play simplifying tactics unless it's literally simplifying to a pawn in game. Because I feel like I've kind of ruined positions like this more often than not, trying to play simplifying tactics if it even leaves them with one rook. Just keep all your extra material. And
Interesting. I would have actually traded because I have 3 pieces. If it was two
yeah,
pieces, I
yes,
still
three.
would have traded because I know the technique. But I mean, I thought pawn to c4 was just such an obvious play because going back, pawn to c4, there is no move. If you play here, I just take. And if I take and take, and then you come here, my bishop is defending the pawn, you have no play. And so, yeah, I think this is what I would have gone for because your rook just doesn't have anything. And if you go here to try and keep an eye on the pawn, now I win a little bit more time. So
No, I
this
like that.
is just but instead we see knight here, which is not bad, but it's not I think as clean as it could have been. Um, we see bishop to h3, kicking away the rook. Also a very nice way of playing it, but I think a little bit less accurate. Yeah, and we're hoping here to maybe walk into this, and I have better drawing chances. It's still completely winning though, unfortunately. But in this position, I can just go bishop to g4, and then I'm even controlling the h
Oh,
pawn push later on. So, and I suspect we're going to see
I'll be able to
that.
play bishop takes pawn check. I mean,
Huh?
I said I bet I'll play bishop takes pawn check.
Yeah, this is I think also reasonable, but after takes, I mean,
Yeah,
you're
this is
still
unnecessary.
completely winning, but you're
This is
it,
exactly
it
kind of what
it's
I was talking about. No need to.
it's getting closer to a draw when you could just, play bishop to d4. Um, and of
Or,
course, like
or,
every move is
or play
winning.
king g2.
Yeah,
now,
king e2.
now you're securing bishop h3 and threatening bishop takes check.
And we actually see takes and takes. And so he's going down this line, I think, rather unnecessarily, but he is still completely winning. So it's not like, oh my goodness, he just lost the game. We're still up a full piece. And you know what?
Do you like
I,
grabbing
I
g5,
can't.
or would you go check check grab b2?
No, I would have taken g5. And the reason I go g5 is because now you're cut off, and I'm gonna try and mate you with an Arabian mate, something like that. This is my dream. Um, yeah. Now I'll go here.
Connor dreams of mate.
I do dream of mate. Yeah. Um, but no, I mean, it is still very, straightforward to win for somebody as strong as Ezekiel. But King F1, I think, is just a step in the wrong direction. I'm not sure what's going on with King F1. But maybe Rook G1 is the plan after some H6 push. I'm not actually following, but it could just be they're in time trouble and don't see the full continuation. But still winning, still up a piece. Um, I don't think Ryan's going to be able to hold this, especially with the 30-second increment. Um,
All right, should we start the recap?
yeah, we can quickly go over all the games. We're just going to assume that Ezekiel is able to convert this. Um, but yeah, let's take a look. So on board one, a very, very sharp match. Um, Miles playing the system that he always plays, and he has very good results with the system. But Nate just ended up really outplaying him, finding, I think, a very nice play. Nate takes f2
Crazy
here,
good move.
just winning a bit of material, and then Miles just blunders with this rook to d1 move instead of capturing back. You have to capture back here, and after takes and takes, it's not so great, but at least you're playing. But Miles just blunders with rook d1, and after takes, the big problem is I'm hitting your queen. So you don't have time to take. I'm also hitting this bishop. So this is just a full piece blunder. And after takes, bishop to f6, you were spying this pawn, but now I'm blocking it, and I should be completely winning. But so we see h4, and then we see h5, which is a natural move. I was a little bit surprised to see it because Nate is usually like, don't let me attack you. I was expecting queen to e7 by Nate, but h5, I can't fault him. G4, and after takes. Now black is getting a little bit iffy. It's still definitely in black's favor, but it feels a little bit scarier than it was a few moves ago. And we see queen to e7, queen to f4, and after taking on h4, rook g2, stepping on the line, king to g7. This is I'm all of a sudden it's starting to get very scary. King g7 allows knight to d6, and it's getting closer to equal. We're gonna win this exchange after a move like knight to f6, which is I think the most principled play. But instead, just because Miles has been applying pressure this entire game, we see a really surprising blunder from Nate, rook to f8, and this happens to the best of us. We just missed knight to f5, just forking the king and the queen, and even though it looks like we can capture the knight, we can't because our rook on g2 is pinning the pawn, and so the game ends rather abruptly after this unfortunate blunder.
Yeah, it's kind of a case of, the last blunder is brutal in chess because yeah, we saw earlier in the game he found epic tactic knight takes f2, and
Yeah.
even saw a big blunder from Miles earlier, but it doesn't really matter if you blunder earlier if your opponent blunders later, and so that's why you got to just keep your game face on and keep applying pressure. So great game by both players, honestly, and just a rough moment at the end, but still a nice game for us to take in.
Right, and the next game was just this is a very ambitious opening, pawn to f4. and Eddie trying to play it looks like the King's Gambit, but Robert having none of it. And Robert is just playing a substantially worse opening to try and get Eddie out of theory. And already I think Black is for choice here. And Eddie making no mistakes this entire match. I'm just curious. I think and yeah, Eddie finds one of the best plays, Bishop to F5, Bishop G4 being computer number one, but still very, very strong. And yeah, Eddie playing a really, really clean match and just not seeing any ghosts. Trading everything already up material, and then finding this very nice queen sack, just to move yourself to an end game that you're definitely winning. And Robert unfortunately just isn't able to hold it together here. Eddie is now up just a clean piece, and with a little bit of technique, he's able to convert this. So very, very nice game from Eddie, and Eddie's first win against Robert. So really an impressive performance by Eddie, clean all the way through. The next game, we see UV versus Dane. Dane really trying to make something happen against UV right out of the opening, and a little bit too much trying to happen. He sacks the material to try and create an attack. So after G5, Bishop G3 takes. This has all been seen before, but now this new move, Knight to G5, just
here's a bit of a question too. Why didn't he sack? You know, if he's gonna sack on G5, why didn't he sack when he had his bishop on H4?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking. I'm not really sure what was going through Dane's head, because clearly this sack can't work. But maybe he's thinking of a different position where he's seen this, because he played this, you know, in like 2 minutes. And this is like known theory, but you can see in this endgame, UV was able to just hold this bishop, and I'll quickly run through it. Yeah, UV just doesn't see any ghosts and instantly trades off queens, and then just masterfully maneuvers his pieces and forces Dane to basically lock his pawn so he can never make progress. And all of a sudden, he's worse, and there's nothing he can do. So
well, it's not totally all of a sudden, just basically after knight takes G5, but
okay. Other than that, yeah. White had some play for a few moves, but UV was just able to hold it off, and there was nothing Dane could do. So very, very nice technique, just a beautiful endgame technique here. And after takes, rook check here, rook d6, and bishop e5, yeah, we throw in the towel, because like we said earlier, we're just going to trade this off. After takes and takes, we're losing the pawn. We can't even go here because of here, and now we have to trade, and 5 points up. Someone as strong as UV, who's an expert, can definitely convert this, maybe even with a blindfold, right? So just nothing to play for, so he throws in the towel. It looks like Ryan and Ezekiel are still playing, so I'll skip over them for now. We'll end with their game so we can get a few more moves in. Then we saw Albert versus Vincent. Albert playing an interesting opening. I thought had a very nice advantage, and then Vincent really just showing his understanding in this position, and then for some reason not taking here, but still doing very well. And okay, remember how we said Albert won? It was a draw. They I think agreed to a draw, maybe played a few more moves. And then they agreed to a draw. And, Vincent losing, a little bit of a chance here just to be better by taking this pawn for free. But, maybe just a missed evaluation, because he spent 5 minutes just to trade, which is not a mistake by any means, because now the position is equal. But I was just a little surprised, because Vince usually tries to go for as big of an advantage as he can. I thought taking the pawn gave him more winning chances. And after trades, we see, Vince is up a pawn, but Albert has all the activity. And in this position, I was also surprised that we didn't see Albert, reclaim this pawn, but not such a big deal.
I don't think he noticed his weak back rank there.
Maybe that's it. So that's one thing I didn't say earlier. This looks like, an exchange, because, pawn for pawn. But unfortunately, it doesn't work, because after rook to a8, we can only block in this checkmate. So we don't want to walk into checkmate, so we can't take it. So instead, we just push our pawn, which, makes sense if we don't see that our back rank is a little weak. And Albert really, really playing this game just fantastically. A little bit strange putting the pawns on the same color as this bishop because they're going to be long-term targets. But Albert still defended them really well and was able to just hold down to a better position. And then this king d4 move was a little strange though, because we don't want to give up this square. What Albert should do here is, bring our rook back, but he ended up still being able to, make a little bit of something happen. But Vince just played a fantastic match, and we got a repetition here. Neither of them agreed to the draw, though, or claimed the draw, because they both wanted to win. And then after rook to h7 in this position, they both agreed to a draw, which is interesting because normally I see Vince trying to push.
Let's turn the engine on.
It's completely winning. I wonder though, if what happened was back in this position, they did agree to a draw, and then they started doing analysis. That's maybe what happened.
Yeah, because this makes a lot of
sense. Yeah, because this move here, I think, is good. And once we get to this position, it's still zeros, but
yeah, and that also makes sense with like them having a 1-0 earlier.
Yeah, I think that's maybe it.
Because there's no way Black would agree to a draw in this position. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and so probably just a draw earlier. But yeah, very, very well played match. The next match was just from the start, a Sicilian, so going for something sharp and really playing a very interesting line and top moves all the way through the opening, so very well played. And then after bishop to d2, it started to get a little bit strange, but yeah, black just having a very comfortable advantage here with all their pieces developed. And after trading and coming knight to d5, we see rook to c2, and already I think even though the engine says this is close to 0, I think black is very happy here, especially after rook to b1. But okay, we see rook to c8, and after trade. Now this is a very equal endgame, and there's just not a lot you can do when there's no pieces on the board. So we end up seeing just a big exchange of everything and an agreement to a draw in this position. And then the very last one, Norm versus Asher. Norm playing the white pieces, Asher playing black. Norm plays a very typical opening that he's played 1,000 times. He's doing it very well. And then Asher decides to castle queenside and creates some attack against Norm, which just ends up proving to be very tricky to defend. I was a little surprised. Norm, I think, was maybe seeing ghosts because castling, I think, is just very principled to get out of the line with the rook. But this is what happens when you play an aggressive player who does a very nice job at just developing, taking control of the center, and making you really have to think. And so we see bishop to e3, which is just a mistake here. And after knight out, offering a queen trade, and coming to e6, just this battery against this bishop is very hard to deal with. So we see king to f2, we triple up, and after trade, this is definitely drawing after trades, for example. But instead we see rook to e1, which unfortunately I think just blunders the game. After queen to d6, there's nothing we can do. Our rook is just hanging. And so very nice job, Asher, finding this play. And after takes, rook takes, check, king up, check. We see this counter check, which just ends the game on the spot because now black is just going to be a full rook up. So very nice win. And then let's go back to our very last game, still going. But yeah, no surprise. White is going to convert this to a win. So coming back here, we see this trade. And I guess White's idea is to run over and support the pawns, which sure makes sense. And after trades takes, yeah, there's nothing you can really do. When you have the extra knight, you can't make progress, and we're seeing that here. And rook d5, and I can't tell if black is still thinking or not. Maybe we saw resignation, but even without this knight, okay, no resignation, which is fine. But even without this knight, it's still fine, and we're gonna see check and knight here because this is the most principled. just going to hold all the pawns, and you can't really make progress.
It's still a little, to me, that's a little too close for comfort based on how much material I'm up because, yeah, knight check is only cut. Maybe he has king, your knight's covering king g6, but, and you can't play a5, a4, or also play rook takes pawn and stuff. So it's just like, okay, I'm
Well,
up.
even if I trade this for this position is still winning.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
No, I get it. But it just seems a bit. I kind of would have just kept the rook with the two pawns and kept the king and the knight. Brought the king and knight over until I sacked the knight for the pawn, and I guess it
yeah,
doesn't really
and
matter. But I just don't want to even
rook
think
here,
about that pawn.
but yeah, king g6, and it might get a little bit spicy.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I understand why he didn't play this. I agree with knight check because you have to go, I don't know, 6, and then we just go knight here.
Yeah.
Or we can even get a little bit tricky and go knight d3 and just force this pawn off. Because once we do this and takes, now there's 0 counterplay.
Yep.
So
Yeah, and this is what I
just,
would kind of be aiming
I
for.
think
I want to get that pawn
all
off as soon as
moves
I
are
can.
winning. Yeah, after knight d3, knight e5, I think is definitely play.
Here's an interesting endgame question for you. If he had, let's imagine White had to sacrifice the rook for the pawn. Is this winning for White?
Yes, it's still winning because our pawns are so fast, but just barely. Okay. Well, in this position, if we take, no, this is a draw. But when the king was over here,
So if the king can get in front of the pawns, then a knight's not enough to push him out of the way.
yeah. But what we're gonna see is we're not gonna see takes. We'll see something else. Oops. Let me.
Yeah, and that's a
Knight
contrived example, but I was just kind of wondering about that. Knight and two pawns against a rook ending.
Yeah, and we're not gonna see takes here. So I'm
Yeah,
just gonna
yeah, that'd
remove
be
that. No, that would be silly. We're gonna see king to c5 here, which I'm surprised.
that'd be akin to rook takes c3 from the other week.
Yeah, that was a surprise to both of us. It looks like the clocks have stopped, so I'm gonna say that
Yeah,
white is probably won.
and honestly, we're at the end time of the
On the
stream,
clock,
so we usually
yeah, the
run
clock.
kind of 8 to 10:30. And not that we won't make an exception if there's an exciting game, but I don't think this one qualifies. So yeah, I think we're gonna wind it down at this point. But thank you so much for everyone tuning in tonight. Next week we will. Some weeks hopefully we will have the FIDE Master back. We're gonna get him as many weeks as we can, but otherwise we'll have myself or Connor on alongside them, or maybe one or both, or maybe we'll get John back on. So we're gonna have a mix of commentators, but we will be back next week. Thank you so much for everyone tuning in. Really appreciate it, and especially if you're a player who was watching the replay, leave a comment. You guys are the main audience. We're hoping you guys watch the replay, check out your games, check out the commentary. Make this broadcast really exciting to come get players to come play more at the club because they're going to get their games commentated on. So if that applies to you, we want to hear about it because that's our hope. So um, with that, also like, subscribe. Thanks for all the channel support, and thank you, Connor, for your commentary tonight. Really appreciate you
Yeah, absolutely.
volunteering to
Thank you.
commentate. And, we're gonna
Yep.
call here. Thanks, you guys.
Right.